Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Bible, one book, one verse at a time. Today we're going to be looking at the book of Ruth, and it's this book that sits between the time of the judges and the time of the kings, and it really sets up, or it prepares us for David, who is a king that we will learn later about in the story. But it's a time in which, as we talked about the time of the judges, it's not necessarily a time where it seems like very many people were following God's instructions for them. Lots of people seemed to turn away and to go and do their own thing and to try to seek fulfillment and success elsewhere. And so there's this question of what's going on? Where is God? And what is he actually doing here? And are there any people that are willing to follow God? Well, it turns out in this story there are, but they come from a very surprising spot. So in the book of Ruth, we learn about Naomi and her husband and her children, how there's a famine in Bethlehem, and so then they have to go to a foreign land as refugees, essentially. There, they kind of get settled. The kids marry other wives, one of whom is Ruth, and then Naomi's husband dies and her two kids die, and Naomi is left in this foreign land with these foreign daughter-in-laws, and they're trying to figure out how to make life work. Well, then Naomi hears that the famine is over and they prepare to go back to Bethlehem. On the way, though, she says to her new foreign daughter-in-laws, you might as well just go home, because there's no sense for them to come and to essentially become refugees in a foreign land with no males or no people to protect them and no real way to create for themselves a future. So Naomi's a little bit nervous about what their future might be back in Bethlehem. And Orpah, one of the daughter-in-laws, goes back home, but Ruth says this, and this I think is a key verse for this chapter, because remember, these are words coming from someone who's not a part of Israel at a time when the people of Israel are turning away from God. This is Ruth chapter 1, verse 16. Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God." Ruth is making this amazing commitment to God and to his people, and as the book unfolds, she begins to follow through on the instructions that God provides in the ways that you're supposed to live in the land, and we start to learn about people like Boaz, who is also someone who is living faithfully, providing and following the right kinds of rules, including creating space for gleaners to come and clean up after his harvesters have harvested the field. So he's providing space for the widow and for the orphan and for those who don't have very much. And he creates space for Ruth. And eventually, through kind of a really neat little story, Ruth and Boaz become wed, and then they have a child, and that child becomes the ancestor of David. So that's where we get the story, the connection between the time of the judges and the time of the kings. But it's an amazing story about the power of one individual and an outsider at that to live into what it is God has for his people and to show what it looks like to be faithful in a time when it seems as though God isn't there. It might feel sometimes as though God has left us alone in this space, and Naomi feels very bitter at having everything essentially taken away from her, she says. But she does have Ruth, and God is present for her in that. And in this time as well, while it might feel as though God is not really with us, or we don't know what he's doing, we do have each other, and we are gifts to one another. Now, if you've seen the sermon on this particular book that was given not that long ago, you can see the link in the card up here. You can watch that if you feel like it. But one of the things that we challenged is the question that we were left with is, who can you be Ruth to? And I would love it actually, if you would comment down below on how that has impacted you in the ways in which you found other people that you can be a blessing to, even though it feels as though God might have abandoned them. And if As always, if this has been useful to you, I'd encourage you to subscribe to the channel and click the little bell so you become notified when new videos come out.